Jake's world froze last night when Sarah, his wife of 9 years, sipped her wine and said, "I went on a date." Her words were calm, almost playful, but they sliced through him like glass. The Austin evening hummed outside, but inside, silence screamed. Jake didn't yell or cry. He poured a scotch, met her gaze, and said, "Next time, I won't be here to hear it." Her smirk faltered. She thought she held the pen to their story. She didn't know Jake was about to rewrite the ending. Jake Breener, a 32-year-old high school history teacher, was the kind of guy who stayed late to help students with essays and spent weekends at the Austin Animal Shelter, walking dogs with names like Biscuit and Rover. His students called him Mr. B, and the shelter staff knew him as the guy who always brought extra treats. He was steady, reliable, the one who remembered birthdays and fixed leaky faucets without complaint. For 9 years, he'd built a life with Sarah, his college sweetheart, in a modest suburban home just outside Austin's bustling downtown. They weren't perfect, but Jake thought they were solid. Until last night. It was a Thursday, the kind of warm Texas evening where cicadas buzzed louder than traffic. Jake had cooked dinner, grilled chicken and roasted vegetables, Sarah's favorite. She'd been distant lately, working late at her marketing firm, but Jake chalked it up to stress. He set the table, poured 2 glasses of wine, and waited for her to unwind. She came home at 7:45 p.m., her phone buzzing as she kicked off her shoes. Jake noticed, but didn't comment. He was used to her glued-to-the-screen habits. They sat across from each other, the clink of silverware filling the quiet. Sarah took a sip of her wine, then looked at him over the rim, her eyes sharp in a way Jake hadn't seen before. "I went on a date last night," she said, her voice steady, like she was mentioning a new coffee shop. Jake's Ford paused midair. The words didn't register at first, like his brain refused to process them. He stared at her, waiting for a punchline, a clarification, anything. None came. At the date, he finally managed, his voice low, testing the weight of the word. Sarah nodded, setting her glass down with a soft clink. "Yeah, with a guy from work. Ethan. It was just drinks, nothing serious." She leaned back, watching him, her lips curling into a faint smile that felt like a challenge. Jake's chest tightened, not with anger but with a cold, creeping dread. 9 years of shared mornings, late-night talks, and quiet promises flickered through his mind. He didn't scream. He didn't beg. He stood, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of scotch he'd saved for a promotion that never came. He poured 1 glass, only one, and sat back down. Sarah tilted her head, still watching, like a scientist observing a reaction. "You're not going to ask who he is?" she pressed, her tone almost teasing. Jake's grip tightened on the glass, the amber liquid untouched. He met her eyes, steady and unblinking. "You don't have to tell me next time," he said. "I won't be here to hear it." The words landed like stones. Sarah's smile slipped, just for a second before she caught it. But Jake saw it, the first crack in her confidence. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Aren't you curious why I'm telling you?" Her voice was softer now, probing. Jake didn't bite. He knew this wasn't a confession. It was a test, a game to see how far she could push before he broke. He'd seen glimpses of this Sarah before, when she'd charm colleagues or deflect blame with a smile, but never aimed at him. Not like this. "Did you have fun?" he asked, his voice flat, betraying nothing. Her eyes flickered with surprise, then amusement. "I did," she said, the smile returning, sharper now. "He's got a boat. Talked about it all night." I nodded along. The room went quiet, the cicadas outside louder than ever. Jake's pulse thudded in his ears, but he didn't let it show. He stood again, slower this time, and placed the untouched scotch on the counter. Sarah watched, her fingers still wrapped around her wine glass. She expected him to unravel, to plead, to fight for her. That's what she wanted, a reaction to fuel her control. But Jake wasn't playing. Not anymore. He walked to the front door, pausing only to grab his keys. Sarah's voice followed, softer, less certain. "Where are you going?" Jake didn't turn around. "Somewhere I don't have to compete with strangers to be seen," he said. The door clicked shut behind him. The Texas night swallowed him whole, the air thick with the promise of rain. He drove, not sure where, until he found himself at a motel off I-35, the kind with flickering neon signs and rooms that smelled like bleach. He checked in under his middle name, paid in cash, and collapsed onto the bed, still in his jacket. Jake didn't sleep. He lay there, replaying Sarah's words, her smile, the way she'd studied him like he was a puzzle she'd already solved. But something else gnawed at him, a memory from a week ago. He'd seen a text light up her phone while she slept. Thursday night, same place. Miss you already. The contact was saved as he. Jake had dismissed it then, told himself it was work, a client, anything but this. Now it clicked. Ethan, the boat guy, the one she'd smiled about. By 3 a.m., Jake was on his phone, not texting Sarah, but moving money. Small transfers from their joint account to a personal one he hadn't touched in years. He booked the motel for a week, called his school's admin, and said he'd be working remotely due to home repairs. It wasn't a lie. His home was broken, just not in the way they'd assume. He wasn't running. He was planning. Sarah thought she'd shocked him into submission, but Jake was already 3 steps ahead. She'd underestimated him, and that was her first mistake. Jake thought Sarah's confession was the worst of it, but at 3:17 a.m., his phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. I didn't know she was married. Ethan, the guy from Sarah's date, was reaching out, claiming he was played too. Jake's hands shook as he read it. Not from rage, but from the dawning truth. Sarah hadn't just betrayed him. She'd spun a web of lies. Now, in an Austin motel, Jake's planning his next move, and Sarah's about to learn he's not the pushover she thought. Jake sat on the edge of the motel bed, the glow of his phone casting sharp shadows across the room. The text from Ethan burned into his retinas. I'm sorry. You don't know me, but you deserve better. I told her to tell you. I didn't know she was married. The words were a gut punch, not because Ethan felt guilty, but because Sarah had lied to both of them. Jake typed a reply, his thumbs hovering over the screen, settling on a single question. Why are you texting me? Ethan's response came fast, because I felt like garbage when I found out. She played us both. Jake locked the phone and tossed it onto the pillow. He didn't care about Ethan's remorse. What stung was Sarah's audacity, smiling as she told him about the date, knowing she'd hidden the truth from Ethan too. 9 years of marriage, and she turned him into a ghost in his own life. But Jake wasn't done yet. He opened his laptop, logged into his bank account, and moved another $500 from their joint savings to his personal one. Small enough not to raise flags, deliberate enough to give him options. He wasn't stealing. He was securing his exit. By morning, Jake drove to his school, Austin West High, to grab lesson plans for remote teaching. The campus was quiet, students still on spring break. In the teacher's lounge, he ran into Mia, a math teacher and friend who'd always been blunt but kind. She noticed his drawn expression and didn't let it slide. You look like you slept in your car, she said, pouring coffee. Jake hesitated, then told her everything. Sarah's confession, the date, Ethan's text. Mia's eyes narrowed. She's been acting off at those marketing mixers. I heard her laughing with some guy at the last one. Didn't think much of it, but now... Jake's stomach twisted. What did you hear? Mia leaned closer. She was bragging about a new friend who took her to a rooftop bar. Said he was refreshing. I thought she meant a girlfriend. Not this. Jake nodded, the pieces clicking. Sarah's late nights, her phone always buzzing, her sudden disinterest in their weekend hikes. It wasn't stress. It was Ethan. He left the school with a plan forming. Back at the motel, he searched Ethan's name online. A quick LinkedIn scan revealed Ethan Carter, a 35-year-old account manager at Sarah's firm, with a profile photo of him grinning on a boat. Jake didn't care about the guy's hobbies. He cared about the truth. He texted Ethan again, "What did she tell you about me?" Ethan's reply was slower this time. She said you two were separated, that you were figuring things out. I believed her until I saw her wedding ring last week. Jake's jaw clenched. Separated? They'd slept in the same bed 3 nights ago. Sarah hadn't just cheated. She'd rewritten their marriage to fit her narrative. He booked an apartment downtown, a small studio above a bookstore on 6th Street, using cash he'd withdrawn. He didn't want Sarah tracing him. He told his principal he'd need a month of remote work, citing personal matters. The lie felt bitter but necessary. That evening, Jake's phone buzzed again. Not Ethan, but Sarah. Jake, we need to talk. You can't just leave like this. He ignored it. Another message followed. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we meet? He stared at the screen, tempted to reply, to demand answers, but he didn't. Every word from her felt like a trap. Another chance for her to spin the story. Instead, he drove to a diner off I-35, the kind with sticky menus and waitresses who called Yuhan. He ordered coffee and sat in a booth, replaying Ethan's texts. Sarah had played them both, but Jake wasn't her pawn anymore. His phone buzzed again, an email from an unknown address. It was from Elise, a former co-worker of Sarah's who'd left the firm last year. Jake, I don't know if you remember me, but I worked with Sarah. I heard what happened. She's been seeing Ethan for months, not just one date. She told our team you two were basically over. I didn't buy it, but I didn't know how to reach you until now. Jake's coffee went cold. Months. Not a single date, but a calculated affair. Elise's email ended with, "You deserve the truth. I am sorry." Jake leaned back, the diner's hum fading to static. Sarah hadn't just tested him. She'd built a parallel life, one where he was already erased. But erasure worked both ways. He opened his laptop, logged into a local Austin community forum, and started typing. Not a rant, not a plea, just the truth. He described Sarah's confession, her smile, the way she'd framed it as just drinks. He didn't name her, but anyone who knew them would connect the dots. He hesitated, then hit post. The words were out, raw and real, and Jake felt something shift. Not relief, but power. He was done being invisible. By midnight, his phone lit up with notifications. Friends, co-workers, even a cousin he hadn't spoken to in years had seen the post. Some offered support. Others asked if it was true. Sarah hadn't texted again, but Jake knew she'd see it soon. He didn't care if she was angry. He cared that the truth was finally louder than her lies. As he drove back to the motel, the Austin skyline glittering in the distance, Jake realized this wasn't just about leaving Sarah. It was about reclaiming himself. And Sarah was about to find out how much that cost her. Jake's viral forum post exposing Sarah's betrayal lit up Austin's gossip channels. But now she's at his doorstep, ready to reclaim the narrative. Her eyes plead for forgiveness, but her words twist the truth. Jake's not falling for it. In a downtown coffee shop, he's about to confront her with a move she never saw coming. A recorded truth that will shatter her facade. Sarah thought she could outplay him, but Jake's rewriting the rules, and this time, she's the one who's cornered. Jake woke to his phone buzzing like a hornet's nest. His post on the Austin Community Forum had exploded overnight, racking up hundreds of comments and shares. Old friends, neighbors, even Sarah's co-workers were weighing in. Some expressed shock, others support, and a few hinted they'd suspected Sarah's double life. Jake skimmed the reactions, his coffee untouched on the motel nightstand. He hadn't expected the post to spread this far, but he didn't regret it. The truth was out, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like he was breathing. By 10 a.m., Sarah texted, "We need to talk. I'm coming to you." Jake's pulse spiked. He hadn't told her where he was staying, but Austin wasn't big enough to hide forever. He replied with the address of his new studio apartment above the 6th Street bookstore. Not because he wanted her there, but because he wanted control of the battlefield. If she was coming, it'd be on his terms. She arrived at noon, knocking softly on the door. Jake let her in, keeping his expression neutral. Sarah stepped inside, her movements hesitant, like she was walking into a trap. "You didn't have to post that," she started, her voice low but edged with accusation. "You made me look like the bad guy." Jake leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "You went on a date and told me about it with a smile. You made yourself the bad guy." Sarah's jaw tightened. "It wasn't like that, Jake. I was lonely. You were always at school or the shelter. I needed someone to see me." Her words were rehearsed, a mix of guilt and deflection. Jake didn't flinch. "You needed someone to see you? I was right there, Sarah, cooking dinner, asking about your day. You stopped answering." She looked away, her fingers fidgeting. "It was one mistake. Ethan didn't mean anything." "Then why lie to him about us being separated?" Jake asked, his voice steady but sharp. Sarah froze, caught off guard. "He told you that?" she stammered. Jake nodded. "He texted me. Said he felt like garbage when he found out you were married. Funny how you forgot to mention me to him." Sarah's face flushed, but she recovered quickly. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought you'd understand eventually." Jake laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Understand what? That you could rewrite our marriage to fit your story?" He pulled out his phone, opened a forum post, and read a comment aloud. "I work with Sarah. She's been flirting with Ethan for months. Everyone knew except her husband." Sarah's eyes widened. "That's not true," she snapped. "People are lying to pile on." Jake shook his head. "Elise emailed me. Said you told your team we were basically over. Months ago, Sarah, this wasn't a one-time thing." She stepped closer, her voice softening. "Jake, I messed up. I know that, but we can fix this. 9 years isn't nothing. Her pleas sounded genuine, but Jake saw the calculation in her eyes, the same look she'd had over dinner when she confessed. He wasn't buying it. You don't want to fix us, he said. You want to fix your image. Sarah opened her mouth to argue, but Jake cut her off. Meet me at Brew and Bean on Congress Avenue tomorrow, 3 p.m. We'll talk. Publicly. Sarah hesitated, then nodded, thinking she'd won a chance to sway him. She left, and Jake immediately texted Mia, his teacher friend. Need a favor. Can you be at Brew and Bean tomorrow and record our conversation? Discreetly. Mia replied instantly. Got you. She won't see it coming. Jake wasn't planning to humiliate Sarah, but he needed evidence. Her lies had spread too far, and he wasn't letting her twist the truth again. The next day, Jake arrived at Brew and Bean early, choosing a table by the window. Mia sat a few tables away, her phone hidden in a book. Sarah walked in at 3:05, her posture stiff but composed. She sat across from Jake, leaning forward. I'm here, Jake. Let's work this out. Jake kept his voice calm. Work what out? You've been seeing Ethan for months. You told your team I was a roommate, not a husband. You smiled when you told me about your date. Why? Sarah shifted, her confidence wavering. I told you I was lonely. You were distant. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Jake leaned in, his eyes locked on hers. You didn't just cheat, Sarah. You tried to erase me. You told Ethan we were over. You told your friends I was gone. But I'm still here, and now everyone knows what you did. Sarah's voice cracked. That post was cruel, Jake. You're making me the villain. You made yourself the villain, he said, his tone final. You had a choice, and you chose to lie. To me, to Ethan, to everyone. I'm done being your shadow. Sarah's eyes glistened, but Jake didn't soften. He nodded toward Mia, who was still recording. This conversation is being saved, Sarah. Not to hurt you, but to protect me. You don't get to rewrite this anymore. Sarah's face paled. She hadn't expected him to play this card. You're recording me? She whispered, her voice trembling. Jake nodded. Because I deserve the truth. And so does everyone else. Sarah stood, her chair scraping the floor. You're not the man I married, she said, but the words lacked conviction. Jake didn't blink. And you're not the woman I loved. She walked out the coffee shop door, slamming behind her. Mia sent Jake the recording, a clean audio file capturing every word. Jake saved it, not sure if he'd use it, but knowing it was his insurance. By evening, the forum post had spread beyond Austin. A local blogger picked it up, framing it as a story of betrayal and resilience. Jake's inbox filled with messages, support from strangers, apologies from mutual friends who believed Sarah's version. One stood out, a text from Sarah's sister, Emily. I read your post. I knew she was lying to people, but I didn't know how to tell you. I am sorry. You didn't deserve this. Jake stared at the message, the weight of betrayal sinking deeper. Even Sarah's family had seen through her, but no one had warned him until now. Jake didn't sleep that night. He sat on his apartment's balcony, the hum of 6th Street below grounding him. Sarah thought she could talk her way out of this, but the recording, the post, and the growing chorus of voices were dismantling her carefully crafted image. Jake wasn't out for revenge. He was out for truth. And the truth was about to hit Sarah harder than she ever expected. Sarah's Instagram post paints her as the heartbroken victim, but Jake's viral truth has Austin buzzing. Her lies are unraveling, and now her sister's text confirms even her family saw through her. As Sarah scrambles to salvage her image, Jake holds the recorded coffee shop confrontation, a weapon he hasn't used yet. The fallout is spreading, and Sarah's about to face the consequences of her betrayal. But will Jake share the recording, or is his silence the loudest move of all? Jake scrolled through Sarah's Instagram post at 7 a.m., his phone screen glaring in the dim light of his 6th Street apartment. The post was a masterpiece of manipulation, a soft-focus selfie, Sarah holding a mug, captioned, New beginnings are hard, but growth comes through pain. Grateful for second chances. Comments poured in, You're so strong, and keep shining, girl, from friends who didn't know the truth. Jake's stomach churned. She wasn't grieving. She was branding herself the survivor of a marriage she'd dismantled. His forum post had shifted the narrative. By noon, it had been shared across Austin's local blogs, with headlines like Teacher's Heartfelt Post Exposes Wife's Betrayal. Mutual friends messaged Jake, some apologizing for believing Sarah's vague hints about a troubled marriage. Others, like their old neighbor Tom, texted, I saw her with some guy at a bar months ago. Didn't want to stir drama, but now I wish I'd said something. Jake thanked him, but the words stung. How many people had seen Sarah's lies and stayed silent? Sarah's sister, Emily, called that afternoon. Jake hesitated, but answered. I read your post. Emily said, her voice tight. I tried to tell her to stop, Jake. She said you were drifting apart, that you didn't care anymore. I didn't know she was lying to everyone. Jake gripped the phone. Why didn't you tell me? Emily sighed. I thought she'd fix it. I didn't realize how far she'd gone until I saw her crying in her car yesterday. She said you left for real. Jake's jaw tightened. She left first, Emily. Long before I walked out. Emily paused. I know. I am sorry. Some of us saw it, but she's good at making people believe her. Jake ended the call, his mind racing. Even Sarah's family knew she was spinning a story, yet she'd kept him in the dark. He checked his email and found another message from Elise, Sarah's former co-worker. She's losing it at work. People are whispering. Ethan's avoiding her. She tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but no one's buying it. Jake didn't reply. The truth was doing its work without him lifting a finger. By evening, Sarah texted again. You're ruining my life. Can we just talk? Jake ignored it. He knew her playbook: deflect, charm, rewrite. Instead, he met Mia at a taco truck near Zilker Park. She slid her phone across the table, showing the coffee shop recording. It's clean, she said. Every word crystal clear. You gonna use it? Jake stared at the file. Sharing it could bury Sarah, but it felt like crossing a line. Not yet, he said. Maybe not ever. But I need it in case she escalates. Mia nodded. Smart. She's already posting that sob story online. People are eating it up. Jake shook his head. Let them. The truth's out there. It'll catch up. Mia grinned. You're different, Jake. Not the quiet guy who just takes it anymore. Her words hit hard. For years, he'd been the accommodating one, the husband who smoothed things over. Now, he was the one setting boundaries. The next day, Jake's principal called. Heard about your situation, she said. Take the time you need, but we've got your back. Jake thanked her, relieved his job wasn't at risk. He spent the afternoon at the animal shelter, walking a hyperactive beagle named Rocket. The routine grounded him, a reminder of who he was outside Sarah's chaos. But the chaos wasn't done. That evening, Ethan texted again. I ended it with her. She lied to me too. I'm sorry for my part in this. Jake didn't respond. Ethan's guilt wasn't his problem. Sarah's next move came at midnight. A new Instagram story. Sometimes you lose people to find yourself. I'm learning to forgive. Jake's blood boiled. She was doubling down, framing him as the one who'd abandoned her. He opened the forum where his posts still trended. New comments speculated about Sarah's identity, some naming her outright. A co-worker of hers posted, I saw her with Ethan at happy hours for months. She said her husband was checked out. Lies. The tide was turning, and Sarah's narrative was cracking. Jake's phone buzzed again, another message from Emily. She's freaking out about the forum. She knows it's about her. Be careful, Jake. Careful. The word lingered. Sarah wasn't violent, but she was cunning. Jake backed up the coffee shop, recording to a cloud drive, and shared access with Mia, just in case. He wasn't afraid of Sarah, but he wasn't underestimating her either. By the third day, Sarah's office fallout hit. Elise emailed. Her boss pulled her aside today. Client saw the forum post and asked questions. She's on thin ice. Jake didn't feel triumph, just exhaustion. Sarah's world was unraveling, not because of him, but because of her own choices. He spent the evening with a new friend from the shelter, Carlos, who'd invited him for beers at a dive bar. Carlos didn't pry, just shared stories about his own messy breakup. You're doing the right thing, he said. Don't let her drag you back. Jake nodded, sipping his beer. For the first time, he felt like he was moving forward, not just running from Sarah's lies. But he knew she wouldn't let go easily. Her Instagram posts were proof. She was fighting to control the story, even as it slipped through her fingers. Jake checked his phone one last time before bed. A new message from an unknown number. Jake, it's Sarah's friend from work. She's planning to confront you again. Watch your back. Jake stared at the screen, the weight of the recording heavier than ever. Sarah was coming, and this time, he'd be ready. Sarah's desperate for a final meeting, her letter pleading for closure, but Jake knows it's another move in her game. Armed with the recorded truth and Austin's eyes on her unraveling lies, he agrees to meet, one last time, in a crowded coffee shop. Sarah thinks she can charm her way back into control, but Jake's done playing her pawn. This confrontation will end their story, and the truth will decide who walks away whole. Sarah's not ready for what Jake's about to do. Jake held Sarah's letter, its crisp edges worn from a day, in his pocket. Her words were polished, claiming she never meant to hurt him, that Ethan was a fleeting mistake, and that his leaving made her fall in love with him again. The plea for a final meeting felt like a trap, but Jake saw an opportunity. He texted her, "Brew and Bean, tomorrow, 2 p.m., public. No more private games." He forwarded the coffee shop recording to Carlos, his new friend from the shelter, with a note. "Hold this, just in case." The next day, Jake arrived at Brew and Bean early, securing a table near the counter where barista's chatter would drown out any shouting. Mia was there again, stationed discreetly with her phone ready to record. Jake's heart pounded, but he kept his focus. Sarah walked in at 2:03, her steps measured, like she'd rehearsed this moment. She sat across from him, hands clasped tightly. "Thank you for meeting me," she started, her voice soft. "I just want to end this with respect, like we used to be." Jake leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Respect? You told me about your date," with a smile. "Sarah, you told Ethan we were separated. You told your team I was a roommate. That's not respect, that's erasure." Sarah flinched, her eyes darting to nearby tables. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "I'm trying to fix this." Jake didn't waver. "Fix what? Your lies? Your Instagram posts about new beginnings while I was still your husband?" Sarah's voice cracked. "I was lost, Jake. I made mistakes, but I still love you. Doesn't that count?" Jake shook his head. "Love doesn't lie for months. Love doesn't rewrite someone's life to make them the villain." He pulled out his phone, showing the recording app open but not playing. "Our last talk here was recorded. Every word. I haven't shared it, but I will if you keep twisting the truth." Sarah's face drained of color. "You're blackmailing me?" she whispered. "No," Jake said. "I'm protecting myself. You've been lying to everyone. Your friends, your sister, your co-workers. But the truth's out now, and you can't charm your way around it." Sarah's hands trembled. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Ethan was a distraction. I stopped it after 2 times. I realized I wanted you." Jake's eyes narrowed. "You wanted me after I left, when you thought you'd lost control. That's not love, Sarah. That's regret." She leaned closer, voice desperate. "What do you want, Jake? To ruin me? To make everyone hate me?" Jake paused, letting her words hang. "I don't want to ruin you. I want you to own what you did. You broke our marriage, not me. And I'm not carrying your guilt anymore." Sarah's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. She opened her mouth, then closed it, her usual quick wit failing her. "I'm sorry," she finally said, barely audible. "I know I messed up." Jake nodded. "I believe you're sorry, but sorry doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't erase the months you lied. I'm done being your shadow." He stood, signaling the end. Sarah stayed seated, staring at the table. "You're really gone, aren't you?" she asked. Jake didn't answer. He walked out, the coffee shop's bell jingling behind him. Mia texted him the new recording, another layer of truth secured. Days later, Jake heard through Elise that Sarah's firm had put her on probation. Clients had pulled projects after the forum post spread, and her coworkers distanced themselves. Sarah posted one last Instagram story, a quote about learning from mistakes, then went silent online. Emily texted Jake. She started therapy. She's not okay, but maybe this is her wake-up call. Jake didn't reply. Sarah's path was hers now. Jake signed a lease on his 6th Street apartment, making it his own. He bought a small coffee maker and a bookshelf for his history texts. He kept volunteering at the shelter, where Rocket, the beagle, became his favorite walking buddy. Carlos invited him to a trivia night, and Jake met Lisa, a librarian with a sharp laugh who didn't know his past and didn't need to. They talked about books and bad movies, and for the first time in months, Jake smiled without effort. A month later, a stranger messaged Jake on the forum. "Your post helped me leave a toxic relationship. Thank you for speaking up." More messages followed, people sharing how his story gave them courage. Jake didn't feel like a hero, just a guy who'd survived. He deleted Sarah's last text without reading it. Her words no longer had power over him. One morning, walking Rocket along Lady Bird Lake, Jake realized he hadn't thought of Sarah first thing that day. The weight of her betrayal had lifted, not gone, but lighter. He wasn't victorious, just whole. Sarah faced her consequences, not punishment, but accountability. Jake's truth had set him free, And as Austin's skyline glowed in the sunrise, he knew he was writing his own story now, one where he wasn't the background character anymore.